All right. Hello and welcome to episode 10 of the Crawl, Walk, Run podcast. I am Jessica Vaughn, and most people know me as Meta Dev Girl. This is our first podcast of the year for 2024. So I am super excited about just being able to embark on new journeys, completing things that might even be lingering from the previous year. So wherever you are watching from or whenever you're listening to this, I'm happy to have you here. I was really trying to reflect on what would be a good topic to start out the year with, um, but also not a topic that we've already covered. And so it really occurred to me that I want to say, like in December, in one of my live streams, this was maybe one of my last live streams in December, I actually got this question. And the question was basically, how do I stay motivated being a software engineer, being a software developer? So it was interesting to me because I think there's a lot that goes into motivation, of course, and it's something that we have to really be intentional about. It's not something that you can just you can't just let it be and just hope that it's going to happen. So when you do find yourself in moments where maybe the natural motivation that you have might be lacking, or you are maybe even trying to build up some motivation, I wanted to come up with some very practical ways that we could actually handle motivation, recharge ourselves, I guess you could say. And of course, by this being the first episode of the new year, I think it's time appropriate as well. So if you think that this will be helpful, hopefully you will stick around and listen to some of the things that I have here. And the way I actually started out this making the list for this episode today is going to be 20 ways to stay motivated as a software developer. So what I did was, at first I was like, I have my ideas, and I've done lists like this in the past, but I actually went to Google and I searched on Google, like, basically ways to stay motivated as a software developer. And when I was searching on Google, I basically saw that first of all, Google's trying to keep up with Chat GPT and all that. So I'm proud of them for the way that they are constantly actually evolving the Google searches. So basically, what I saw is that when I searched for this, initially Google gave me like all of these tips. It gave me about 19 tips, I want to say. Give or take, some of them were a little bit of duplicates of themselves, but for the most part, it gave some pretty good tips. And it also gave references and different links that you could follow. So the way that Google phrased it was, these are tips from sources across the web. So then when you would see a list of tips, and then if you click on any individual tip, then you could you could see maybe four different links that you could possibly go to, other blogs, articles, and things of that nature. So, anywho, I really like the list that they came up with, but I thought what I would do today is I took the tips that I thought were legitimate, but I also wanted to just talk practically about not just what the actual tip is, but how ways that I've done this in my career. Because, at the end of the day, it's really nice to get information from Google, but you really want to know a lot of times, like, how can I really apply this to myself? So, anyways, like I said, we have 20 tips today, and I'm going to just start out with the first one. Now, this one was actually not mentioned at all when Google gave me back this long list of results, but I think it's super, super crucial. And the first one is going to be vision and mission. Okay. So, this actually was where my mind went to first when I got this question recently, because one thing that I've learned about myself over the years is that I need, in the past, I'll call it like a North Star, right? For me, a lot of times, I will do anything that needs to get done. I'll do all the grunt work and all the stuff that I hate to do, as long as I know that all those items are serving a bigger purpose, basically. And so I typically will have a North Star. And I would recommend that, if you really don't understand what your vision is for your career, or even what your vision is for your life, or what it is that you want to contribute to the field, to society, or whatever the case may be, then that's a really good place to start, actually. No matter how far along you are in your career or how early you are, I think everyone can kind of take a step back and sit back and say, hey, who do I want to be? Like, when you envision success for yourself, what does that look like? And then from there, you can also think about things like, what do I want to contribute? How do I want to feel? And how do I want to be remembered? Or what do I want to be remembered for? So these are questions that, over the years, I think a lot of times these are very intuitive to me, right? I go for different things that I'm interested in doing based on the impacts that I want to make, or based on the type of person that I want to become. So for me, again, like, thinking about the North Star thing, when I first got started in software, the biggest thing for me was that I was currently an engineering student. I was struggling, though, when it came to just like having the right finances to pay for school. And it was so difficult dealing with like the financial aid system and things like that, to the point where it was counterproductive to my studies. It was actually times where, I didn't have, like, my financial aid wasn't done in the order and the time frame that it needed to be done, so to the point where I wouldn't have my books for school. So now, I'm 3 weeks into the semester and I don't have my books, which obviously is going to put a hindrance on you, and is especially difficult when you're in an engineering program, and you need your textbooks to learn, to study. By 3 weeks into the semester, you probably already had a few quizzes and you're coming up on a test. So anywho, because I was experiencing all these different struggles, and another aspect being that I was very freshly initiated into the world of STEM careers and understanding the existence of STEM careers, um, I was very passionate about the fact that for some reason I was never exposed to STEM earlier on in my life. And I was also very motivated by the fact that I really didn't like, not having the money I needed for school. And I didn't enjoy just the whole process I was going through. So, part of me going into software was like, I'm like, well, I'm going to school to get a job so I can, like, afford to, live a good lifestyle. And the school is counterproductive now. So when I went to my boot camp, like, it was a different vibe for me. Like, I was very focused. I was all in because I knew what was at stake. I knew that I could literally change the whole trajectory of my career just based off of the work that I was putting in. So that was super motivating. And for maybe the first, honestly, really, until I got to a few years into my career, that motivation was enough. All that was enough for me. As time has gone on, though, I have had to focus a lot more on, I guess, who I want to be and what I want to contribute to the field. So right now, if you follow like me as a like in live streaming and things like that, I always talk about how, I'm moving into machine learning and I want to get into research. So when I think about what my motivations are, it's really, what can I contribute? What I love about the research field in particular, now that's not a field for everybody, but for me, research is an area where you can bring new ideas to light. You can bring new ideas to the market. You can bring new technologies. You're basically being the person that can potentially introduce something that can expand over generations, and you just really never know. So I really love the idea that I can contribute to something new. um and so that's really important to me. But, I say all that to say that, I don't think that it's talked about as much as it could be. That vision, having our mission is really, really crucial to how we perform in our day to day and how motivated we are. So I would hope that, that's a good place to start if you haven't really been thinking about that in any type of depth. So I feel some type of way about this. I feel some type of way about my camera right now. So I might s- yeah, I guess I'm not gonna swap over, but I feel some type of way about this camera. So I hope that it's not too distracting. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into number two. So number one was vision and mission. Number two is to embrace continuous learning. Now, to me, continuous learning is first of all a mindset. There is the practical side, which we're going to talk about as well. But when you are getting into the field, or even if you are already in the field, if this is not something that you have come to accept, you have to accept that as a software developer, that is a part of our lifestyle. That is a part of the value that we bring in our careers and our skill set is that continuous learning. So, that's why I believe that this is a mindset because you want to be the type of person that doesn't just figure out how, but you understand why. And if you are in the day to day of your career, you can get really bored or you can get really like you can actually be demotivated when you go too long with just getting things to work and not really getting into the nuances of how and why things are working the way that they are as technical in technical careers. I think a lot of us are really motivated to get things to work, and you will be surprised how exciting it might be for you to actually dig a little bit deeper and find out why something works the way it works. I know I have always been the type of person that I love to put stuff together. I love to see how, like, actually physically put items together, see how the inner workings looked. That was something I always loved even as a kid. So when I found my way to engineering and to software, I was excited because I was like, this is what I always wanted. And it also played on my longtime love of math as well. Um, so over time, I would say that there was definitely phases because all of my experiences in startups. So there was definitely phases where, how can I put it? Like we had to move so fast that I just was like, I just have to figure out how, right? If you say you need this feature, I just have to figure out how to get that feature working. And I found myself at a point where I really didn't even feel comfortable with the things I knew how to do because I didn't understand why it worked. I didn't really understand like if someone if I had to give, an explanation to somebody of exactly what something was doing and how it was all working under the hood, what the core fundamental concepts were to the technologies that I was putting together, I was just like, I don't think I know why. I don't know why, and that bothered me after a while. Now, for me, self-development has always been important. So, I read books on self-development, different types of skills I might be interested in there. I take skills and personality assessments and things like that. Like I'm that person that's like, I know my Myers-Briggs type. I'm an INTP, by the way, for people that love Myers-Briggs and things like that. So what even in taking those skills assessments or taking those personality assessments, it's not like I'm trying to categorize myself, but a lot of times in those assessments, I'm looking to see, to extract out more information about how I learn, how I'm motivated, what types of skills and strategies and learning techniques might be best suited for me that I may not have even explored or considered before. So yeah, if you there's a lot of ways in our day to day for software engineering where you can just understand a little bit more of the why behind something that you do. So one thing I really enjoyed and learned a lot from some of my peers in a previous role was when we were doing research and development or R&D type of work. So all of the things that we were building, hadn't really been built before. And if it was built before, it was super proprietary, right? This is the type of technology that you can't just Google. Like if you want to build a blog, there's a million articles about how to build a blog. There's a million examples, and you can build it in any programming language you want. You can find an example. But we were in a space where, the type of things we were doing, we had to figure it out from the ground up. And so, like I said, I guess this was a special era for me because I enjoyed the fact that when we were going to start to build a new feature, or if we were going to start to build a new component of our system, one of the first things we would do is actually stop and do research into what it was that we were trying to accomplish. And it wasn't just, oh, let me go through the tutorial, that the quick start guide, and see how to get it up and running, but it was understanding like more of the underlying themes behind it. So if it's an API, understanding how the API works, why it works. Maybe instead of just reading a quick start guide, reading a white paper that the company might have written. And, white papers, I'm not saying you specifically have to get into white papers, but just giving that as an example, um, it gave me a different outlook on how to approach going into problem solving. Sometimes we would say, hey, we're going to build this new feature, or we're going to build this new component, and we don't even know exactly how we're gonna do it, and so first we'll just do some research. It will be somebody's job to just sit there for half the day and figure out what approaches could we possibly take. And then, we may even do another segment of time, again, before we build the feature, where we just did a proof of concept, just try to get something basic working and understand, like, what the nuances are and things like that. So just doing more of the research and understanding the why, and the more technical details of the tools that we were using. And I found that to be like super motivating. That was very exciting. And it was also very motivating when I was able to see other people around me doing the same thing. So, our third way to stay motivated would be to find a mentor. So there's a lot that you can think about when it comes to mentoring because, of course, typically people think about mentors like managers, coworkers. Maybe you see a speaker at a conference you really love and you would hope that they will mentor you. But I really want you to expand the mentality that you have when it comes to what it means to be a mentor. Books, podcasts, following different thought leaders, their blogs, following different experts in the field. Those are all ways of mentorship as well. So, of course, it absolutely helps to have someone that's one on one with you that you can ask specific questions to and things of that nature. But it's also super helpful when you take a look and find out that, you have you find a podcast and you're like, I really love this person, how they approach this problem solving, or I love the library or the framework that they're known for. And really start to follow the guides and the insights that they have, because a lot of times, especially if someone is like in that thought leadership space, in that space in the field, then typically not only do they, do the technical work, but they have speeches, they do conferences, sometimes they even have their own trainings that they develop, they write books, they have podcasts, they have blogs, etc. Literally, was it yesterday? It would have been last night. I forgot to say today is my fourth day of 365 days of code, by the way. And so last night when I was streaming, I was also watching some talks from a CTO conference. Now, for me right now, I am growing into a startup CTO role. So there's certain things that I know that I need to know, and there's certain things that I don't know I need to know. And I just feel like I have to expose myself. And so I was watching all these different speeches, but one person stuck out in particular, right? And of course, the first thing I'm not gonna say of course, but to me, the first thing that came to my mind was to connect with him, right? So I saw this person, I loved how he broke down these different concepts, and he kept talking about the fact that he has a blog. So the first thing I did was go to LinkedIn, sent him a message. I also actually put contents in the message, some type of context, I let him know, what it was I enjoyed, what talk I was watching, which conference it came from. And then I also, so I didn't just send him a blind request, but then I also went ahead and found his blog, right? And so I know that even if I don't have a one-on-one um relationship with this person, I can get a lot of advice, tips, and again, that's all really mentorship just by following the work that they put out, because a lot of times the biggest people that you might hope that could mentor you one-on-one really don't have the capacity to do that at scale. The best way that they can do that at scale is to have blogs and have other content that folks can follow. So think about that as well when it comes to mentorship. But I've definitely benefited from being mentored and having these mentors that were initial instructors to me, teachers, other instructors that I worked with because when I first got started, I was working for a coding boot camp. Um, there was mentorship that I gained from my different engineering leaders over the years. And I was very proactive in that process. So, taking the time to reach out to those folks and ask questions and, foster that relationship, not just expecting them to come and check in on me all the time. And I wasn't expecting them to drive that relationship. That was something that I took responsibility for. And mentorship can definitely go a long way. So let's see. I guess we're on number 5 now. One, two. Nope, this is number 4. So number 4 would be learning new skills. This goes without saying, I think, but just practically, we know that we need to take the time to learn and apply new skills. Also, you want to look into adjacent skills, right? So, for example, an adjacent skill right now to me, I think that it's a good time for me to get a little bit more into cybersecurity, understanding more about cybersecurity, right? That's super practical, versus machine learning is, you know, relatively speaking, I would say it's still a new skill, even though I've been on this journey for a while. Then you have different courses you can take. Obviously, you can come up with projects. You can get involved in open source, or you can do freelance or pro bono. I definitely, when I was first starting out, I did freelance. That was like actually how I got my first experiences in tech. And that was before I took my coding boot camp. But one of the things about skills is, okay, we are technical, that's great, but we need our non-technical skills as well. They are super important and they will actually go a long way in helping you grow your career. So these are things like speaking, public speaking, especially writing. I actually got into video and live streaming after a while, and those were side skills that eventually now I'm literally using those skills all the time to actually grow my career. But they are skills that are not specifically, my coding expertise, but they definitely support that and they help me expand out into other avenues in my career. That also includes editing, like, video editing and things of that nature, which is something I'm working on personally. And then one of the biggest, I would say, is also leadership development. Even if you don't ever plan to be a manager, or you don't think, that you'll want to quote unquote be the leader of a group, that doesn't mean you don't want to understand and have leadership skills. We'll talk about collaboration later as well. But when it comes to working in groups, leadership is not just about being the one that's in front. Leadership is about being able to help facilitate the process that the group is going through. And a lot of times, just because you're not the person who quote unquote has the title of being in charge, that doesn't mean that you can't be a leader. And that also doesn't mean you can't take leadership and ownership over certain components that the actual leader of the group really doesn't have the capacity to do while they're trying to manage everything else that the group needs. So that would take us to number 5. Yeah, number 5. So number 5 is to clearly communicate your expectations. Now, this the biggest thing that I have always done, well, I won't say always, but that I have done from early on is really understanding what my boss is expecting from me and clearly communicating what I'm expecting of my boss and of the company that I'm working for. Because as I said before, I'm the type of person where I have always been into self-development, self-improvement and growth. I typically always know what my next role is going to be, what like I'm aspiring to. So when I come into a new position, I know that just as much as the company wants to get certain things out of me, there is certain things I want to gain out of that role as well. There's certain things I want to learn. There's certain, experiences that I want to have, and there's certain opportunities for growth that I am really, um, that I'm usually really hungry for, especially in coming into a new role. So I did a talk about this a while back, and if you check on my YouTube channel, or on my, website, metadevgirl.com, also, I'm at metadevgirl on YouTube, but if you check either of those, you can find, a topic called "Managing Up to Manage Your Success." And essentially, the conversation is around the idea that a lot of times you have very well meaning team leaders, you can have very well meaning bosses, but that doesn't mean that they actually have the full experience or the full skill set to coach you appropriately and to help you grow your career appropriately. And or they can even have different ideas for your career that you have than what you have for your career. So when you understand how to not just be passive in that relationship, but to be able to communicate, hey, these are the things that you can help me with. These are the ways that I am looking to grow. These are the types of opportunities that I'm interested in. This is a way that I like to get feedback. All of those things can really help your manager in being able to lead you more effectively. So I've typically had roles where we had one-on-ones, like I always had regular one-on-ones with my team leader, whoever that was. But over the years, I've seen that one-on-ones look really different depending on the person who is in charge of your one-on-one. So some team leaders come in and they have a framework and they're like, here's our document that we're going to use to keep track of our notes. And some come in and they just say, hey, what do you want to talk about today? And honestly, neither one of those is necessarily the perfect approach, but it's really more of a middle ground, right? It's good to have some type of, in my experience I've seen, it's good to have some type of format. So I will almost always, if the person doesn't plan on taking notes, I will make sure that we're going to be taking notes regularly. I'll establish that in the beginning because it can be really easy, especially for your manager, to lose track of what you all had talked about and agreed upon and things of that nature because you're not the only person that they have those conversations with amongst, um, doing their job as well. So having notes is super helpful, and um having the openness to have the conversation. One of the biggest things I remember, one thing that sticks out to me, one of my team leaders, he was really awesome, and we would usually have like more casual conversations, and I could ask him questions, he would give me feedback and things like that. But I remember with him, I had to tell him like, here is how you can help me. And I would tell him, like, these are the goals I have that are not necessarily specifically work related. Like at the time, my goals was that I wanted to get more into conference speaking. And so I was like, my struggle that I'm having right now is that I'm not putting any time towards making progress with submitting my proposals. So what I asked him to do was just be the the accountability that I needed and prioritizing that. So I said, okay, every week or whenever we have our one-on-ones, I'm going to tell you what my goals are. And then I'm going to tell you what is the one thing I'm supposed to do for that week. So that next week when we meet again, you know and I know that we're supposed to have a conversation about it. And knowing myself, I know that that helps me not just let that go off to the wayside. And it helps me to prioritize those goals that I had for myself, and not just let those, just kind of linger. And so again, that was just the way that I was like, okay, look, I can see that your heart is there. You really want to help me, but you don't have like a framework or a strategy that you're taking to this process. So here is something that works well for me, and here is like the role that you can take in that process. And he was more than willing to do that and happy to actually kind of get the cheat sheet on exactly how to manage, how to manage me, at least in that sense. So I do encourage that. And again, the Managing Up to Manage Your Success video, and it's also on MetaDevGirl as the same title, metadevgirl.com. There was not just myself, but I think it was three of us, three, well, no, I think it was like five of us in total. So there was three or four other folks that had different experiences, different backgrounds in software engineering, that also talked about what their experiences have been like as well. So if you are not really experienced in clearly communicating your expectations, I do highly recommend you go and check that video out. So the next tip, which is number 6, is going to be join the community. I always talk about this, but even if you are watching this video on YouTube or on Twitch, then you might already have, some form of communities. So these can be meetups. These can be user groups. So, like in your city, if you're a JavaScript developer, you may be able to find a group of JavaScript developers who meets up and has different conversations. They do different presentations. Do different events and things that are technically based. But there's also a lot of Discord and Slack channels. And if you have been a long time member of Discord, then you may not have taken advantage of the communities that Discord has. So in Discord, you can actually go in now and you can look and see what open communities are available. You can search for specific communities that you might be looking for. So that would include Discord. Slack is in that category as well. Um, if you are in a particular language or you use a particular framework or technology, a lot of times those companies or those organizations, they will have a Discord or a Slack channel for their community. So for me, some of the communities that are really important, I started Detroit Black Tech with two of my co-founders. So you all hear from myself and Mac all the time because we do the Hacking with the Homies podcast. Hacking with the Homies is a conference that we actually started for Black and Brown developers. And this year is actually our 5th year of the conference. So I'm excited. It's coming up in May, so look out for those details as well. But we started a group just because we didn't like the feeling of isolation that a lot of us had, being, sometimes, pretty much most times, you might be the only Black developer in your space. You might be, I was pretty much always the only Black woman um, software engineer in the teams I worked on. So when we started Detroit Black Tech, it was a way where even though a lot of us might be the only ones in our team space, we didn't have to feel, isolated in that way culturally. So we had Detroit Black Tech and we started Hacking with the Homies for the same reason. I have been a longtime member of Girl Develop It. I started out as a TA for Girl Develop It when I was first trying to learn Java around that time, but I already knew HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I was able to not only find other women that were interested in learning about tech, but I was also able to help other women get into learning about tech as well. So over time, I became a chapter leader and instructor, and I've been a board member. My first year on the board was 2020. So this is my 4th year actually. So There's a lot of groups. I also have been really, really involved over the years with the National Society of Black Engineers. That's something that I was a part of even when I was back in college. And I also have my sorority as well because I have been a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha since 2011. So those are different types of communities, right? And even though not all of those communities might be super technical, there's just different support that I get out of that. There's different opportunities that I find out. I also love Google Women Tech Makers. There's different opportunities that are shared. There's different opportunities to meet different people as well, and you never know what can come from that. So it can help. It can definitely help in that motivation space. So the next thing would be to change your work environment. Now there's different ways that you can consider this when it comes to changing your work environment. For me, something like scenery. I'm going to talk about scenery and technology, but I have a couple here. I said scenery. So changing your work environment, scenery would be the office space that you're in, sprucing it up, making it comfortable, making it something that you enjoy. Changing your company obviously is, changing your job, or the team dynamic could be something that's demotivating for you. So changing the company that you work for. Also, you could change industries. As software developers, everything we do does not have to be quote unquote in the tech space. So maybe you're motivated by healthcare, maybe you're motivated by the medical space, maybe you're motivated by automotive, maybe you want to be in the beauty industry. There's a lot of every industry can use technology. So you might you might find more motivation in a different industry. Technology is a big one. So to me, that's more so the type of technology you work on, the languages that you work on, the type of things you build as a software engineer. And then the last one would be your job function. So job function would be maybe instead of being a software engineer, I want to be on the infrastructure team, which still is software engineering, but um has a lot more, leaning towards the platform and the the different tools that your services are running on, and can really function as a different kind of as its own entity separate from the software teams, just depending on where you work. So for me, I can pick on scenery and technology. Scenery is big for me. Scenery is super big for me. I'm in a brand new office right now, as y'all can see with my white background. But I'm excited because I have like a completely open palette here. So over the next couple of weeks and even over the course of the year, I will be doing a lot to just make this space my own, make it something that I love to be in. And this is also super important if you work from home like me. I have to really invest in the scenery of my office because I have to be here 8 hours out of the day, and it's not like when you go to, a traditional workspace and they manage what the chairs are and what desks you have and, what color the walls are. No, I have full control over it. So, I have to build that up. That's really important to me. And then, the technology. So one example that I can give in me being able to manage my motivation with technology, um, I made a really like drastic. I didn't realize how drastic it was at the time, honestly, but um one of the teams I was on when I was more so doing R&D, we were managing two two counter um our products, the two products we were managing were counter, that's what I'll say. One was the API that was this is was vehicle connectivity platform. So we managed the API that other developers use to connect to the platform, but then we also managed the IoT side. We managed the tool that actually allowed the vehicles to connect to the platform. So in the beginning that was okay, but as the company was scaling up, those really needed to be two separate teams. And so I had initially joined the company and started out on the API team. However, when the opportunity arose that the IoT team needed to have its own separate dedicated team, and have its own, workflow, I actually volunteered and said, "Hey, I'm super interested in this. Like, I will be one of the first engineers to go and work in this space." So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can change your work environment, but just knowing that some of that motivation can come from the type of problems you're solving, and if you feel some type of connection to them, and other aspects of your motivation can come from what you have to look at for 8 hours of the day, how you have to, spend like all of your waking hours pretty much. So just investing in that goes a long, long, long way. And number 8 was recognition. So, when I thought about recognition, what I thought about is that, um, I don't wanna harp on this one for too long, but there are opportunities if you think that recognition is something that's important to you and something that does motivate you, which I think a lot of people can agree. um you may want to look into like applying for awards, entering contests. There's a lot of different ways to potentially be recognized in our field, and especially if you are a part of any like technical organizations, things like that, or even within your job sometimes. It's a matter of, applying for different awards, but also you sometimes you have to be recommended by someone else. Letting people know that that's something that you're interested in. I know for me, I kind of lose track of it over time, but I really would love to be on like 30 in their 30s list. And that's something where instead of me, really being able to nominate myself, I can look at some of the mentors and other professionals and that I have relationships with, and see if they would be interested in nominating me for different awards as well. So, don't be afraid to reach out to people, because a lot of times, especially if you're putting in the work, um they may not have thought about it, and you can't just assume that people are just gonna think, "Oh, yeah, let me just go and do this," everybody's in their own world, but if you let it be known that that's something that's important to you, a lot of times you will get that support, to get the nominations and things like that. So, I just kinda wanted to throw that out there because that was one that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of, but that was definitely one of the tips that Google, recommended for us. So then number 9 was writing blogs. Now we we write blogs, but blogs are great. I've been working on my blog, metadevgirl.com. Imma keep plugging it because I'm really proud of myself. But um, to me, this is a bigger category. So not only blogging, but we have live streams now. We have videos, right? YouTube, different social media and content creation. So there's so many specific avenues you can get into podcasting. Um, Depending on the comfort level that you have, you may not want to be on camera, but you like to talk, or you express yourself best through talking. You may not want to do edited videos, but you prefer to do live streams. Like me, I prefer real time. So I like live streams and I like podcasting. Um, Blogging is not really something I love, not gonna lie, but it's very important. Like, to me, documentation is important, and I always enjoy being able to find the answer I need that's written in a written format that I can follow along with. So that is something that I feel is important to contribute. But again, if you feel like, oh, I hate writing, but I can talk to you, I can explain it to you, then you can go the video route. You can go live streams or edited videos, or you can go as simple and just do so like TikToks and reels and things like that. You can do the short form, like super short form content as well. So of course blogs are there, but there's all these other avenues as well. And think about exploring other mediums besides just a traditional, or other modes besides just a traditional blog, because there's a lot of good resources and references that are managed on GitHub, for example. Or instead of starting your own personal blog, you could look at a platform like Medium or Dev2, or there's a few others that come to mind. So you might find, an established technical blogging platform, or technical blogging platform, and just establish a presence there. So it's all up to you, but those that definitely helps, like me, staying motivated now. That's a different avenue than just being in the code all day long. So it helps me change context and use different parts of my brain, and it keeps me on my toes, definitely. So I cannot get bored. Um, setting realistic goals is super helpful as well. If you have never heard of any like goal frameworks, I think that SMART goals is a good way to start. So with SMART goals are having specific, that's the S, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based goals. Okay. So again, there's a lot of different frameworks that you can use when it comes to just talking about goal setting and how to base them. But SMART goals is one of the first ones I learned back in college, like early on in college. A lot of leadership development I did in college was through student organizations, and especially spending a lot of time as a leader in the National Society of Black Engineers. And so we learned SMART goals early on. So a specific goal, make your goal specific and narrow for more effective planning. Measurable, make sure your goal and progress are measurable. Achievable, make sure you can reasonably accomplish your goal within a certain time frame. Relevant, your goal should align with your values and long-term objectives. Or another way to say that is some of our, what we say, our vision and our mission. And then time based. So you set realistic but ambitious end dates to clarify your task prioritization and buzzword, increase motivation. Sometimes when we don't have any time frame on the things we want to do, we don't realize that that actually motivates us to get things done. So setting deadlines for ourselves. And for me, like I said, when I was talking about just managing, helping my managers manage me better, when I had these outside goals that I didn't have, they were my own personal goals. So I didn't have anybody else um to be expecting me to accomplish these things. Not only did it help to give myself a time frame, right? I would say, this is what I'm going to do this week. So I have 7 days to do this thing. So there's motivation there. And then I knew that I would have to have a follow-up conversation with that person about what I accomplished, or I would have to actually give a real reason why I didn't get that thing done. And those were my own personal goals, but it still helped out tremendously. Um, Now this is number 11, but this is managing burnout. This is so important to me. And what I want to say about burnout, because burnout can really, really tank your motivation, and you may not realize that you are experiencing burnout. A lot of times, especially software engineers that I've known, experienced, heard from, didn't, and I experienced this myself. You don't even realize you're burnt out. And the reason why, what I want to talk about here is that I think that people can recognize a little bit easier once you start talking about burnout. People can recognize, like, oh, I'm physically burned out, right? Like, my something with my body, I can actually feel that I have some type of exhaustion or whatever. There's mental burnout, and I categorize mental and emotional differently. So to me, mental burnout would be, I was going through a phase where I was doing Java and Kotlin microservices during the day, but at night I was like trying to live stream, and I also wanted to get into, this was before when I wanted to get into machine learning. So it was a big context switch to be like, it's not like my job was easy. Like, we were building a new platform from the ground up during the day. Everything I was doing was new to me. Everything I was doing was a challenge, not just to me, but to the entire company. And then at night, I was turning around after 8 hours of that, trying to also go and like do JavaScript and Python. I definitely burnt myself out mentally. Now emotionally, that's to me, that's a little bit different, because like you can have emotional burnout from the different experiences that you have. Um, I've definitely experienced emotional burnout in like the feelings of isolation sometimes, just being, like I said, pretty much every time I was on the software engineering team, I was the only Black woman. So there's certain aspects of just like cultural life that I always have to explain. I always have to, I like certain things that people won't understand that I'm talking about, certain shows that everybody else has watched that I might not even be familiar with, certain things that I grew up on that other people didn't know about. Um, Having to explain my hair like all the time. And again, it's not necessarily that people had any bad intentions, but when you have to do that all day, every day on top of your job, it can definitely it can drain you. And then the other one that a lot of people don't realize it really causes burnout is boredom. um, if you get into a position that you don't actually have to learn anything new, and you're not really encouraged to learn anything new, that can really, really weigh on people. So having to learn too many things, but then also not learning enough is actually causes for burnout as well. So just to be a little bit more aware about those different areas and really, take those into consideration. Um, Outside of work, one another a way that helps with burnout is having things to do other than coding. So I just have to point that out because and I know this is me, like I actually love to code. So like all my hobbies are related to code, but it's like all my hobbies can't be code because after a while I'm going to get burnt out, even if it's just mental burnout, because I'm never really giving my brain time to rest from that and use different, different parts of my brain. So for me, like I got my little guitar in the back, um, and I have like a new keyboard. I've actually was I've always been into music all my life. So but it's been a long time since I played an instrument. It's been a long time since I actually sang like in a formal way. Like I sing around the house all the time. Like I'm a singer, so I just naturally sing, but I haven't performed in a long time. Um and so that's something that I really miss, and it helps you keep balance. It definitely does. So hobbies, recreation, and socializing, those will go a long way. Now, the next thing is creating something. So, creating something, of course, that goes without saying, but still, like, you don't have to be married to only doing the things that you do for work. And even in work, a lot of times you can find other ways to create new things um, without just being stuck on the core product and projects that you work for. So, creating something includes starting a side project, contributing to open source, especially one of the easiest ways I would say that I would recommend for an experienced software engineer to get into open source is working on bugs that affect your current projects. I don't know a person who does not have at least one open source language, tool, or framework that they are currently working with. Most of the popular programming languages that we use are open source, right? So, especially depending on how far along you are in your career, and what type of experience you have, when you experience a bug that is affecting the systems that you work on day to day, and the bug is coming from the open source project, consider actually going and filing the bug and fixing the bug and submitting a PR. Okay. So it's not like you have to just pick up the project and commit to the project full time or something like that, but just you find things that are wrong every day, and you could definitely take some time to focus on those if you are looking for something to work on, if you're looking for a new challenge, or if you're just looking for a way to break up the monotony. And then the last one I had was to replicate a tool or system. So this is a really fun opportunity as well. I would actually say this can be a bit of a challenge. I'm going to be doing this year with a new platform that I found out as well. We'll be doing a lot of that on live streams. So if you're interested in that, definitely come follow us. But replicating a tool or system. So for example, say you sit down and you're like, can I build like can I rebuild a Twitter? It's called X now, but could I rebuild X, or could I build the Etsy store? Just keep thinking of these different type of platforms. Could I build my own version of Netflix? And that will definitely that'll change your motivation real quick, because a lot of times if you are going to have to do some type of replication like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be the literal one for one, but doing replication like that gives you the opportunity to actually go and learn new skills, try new things that you never had to do, or things that you might not have been responsible for in the platforms that you have worked on. Okay, so let's go to we still have a few more left, but we'll wrap up with the last few. So seeking feedback was another tip that was given, and I agree with this wholeheartedly. I literally get so anxious and overwhelmed when I know that I have to get feedback about something like my performance or whatever. But at the same time, it's so important to me. Like I said, self development is very important to me. And so seeking feedback is just something that I know is a necessary part of the process. It may be easier or harder for individuals just, feeling comfortable with it and being able to take the feedback. But if you can't take feedback, you're going to have a hard time growing. And you may also have a hard time collaborating if you can't take feedback. So, you can receive feedback from your peers. You can receive, obviously, people think about receiving feedback from management in their one on ones. We talked about mentoring. So, mentors are another way to receive feedback. And even personal relationships are a good way to receive feedback as well. Just because someone isn't just because someone isn't technical, that doesn't mean that they can't give you feedback that can be applied to your technical expertise. So, I have friends that they don't do any type of technical job, but they know me personally. So they can tell me things about myself that also probably translates over into some of the ways that, it translates into my technical side as well. Number 14 is to create growth opportunities. This is super big for me. I'm always trying to figure out, like, if I'm going to get a new job or if I'm going to take on a new opportunity, like a new role or something, I'm definitely already thinking about how's this going to affect the things I want to know and learn. I can never do the same thing for too long. It's not like I have to like job hop, or it's not like I have to, hop into different positions and things, but I have to constantly be growing. That is something that motivates me tremendously. So you can find you can have growth opportunities from getting feedback like we talked about. You can take initiative in your teams as well. Um there's a lot of opportunities to take initiative in your teams, including for me, when I worked on a vehicle connectivity platform. I was on the API team when I first started, and I remember literally my first week starting. I went to our headquarters office with my engineering manager and our product manager. So they were going to design meetings to talk about literally how this product was going to be designed. And they were like, "Hey, do any of the developers want to go and be a part of these conversations?" And no one else wanted to go. And that's okay. But like nobody else wanted to go. And I was just like, that sounds amazing to me. I get to sit in the room, like I get to meet some of the other engineering leaders in our organization. I get to go and see in the other office, and I get to, um, take part in helping to flesh out how this product is going to work and what it's going to look like. And it was literally only my first week when I was able to do that. Um, I also, over time in that same role, we would have opportunities where our product manager or engineering manager would be like, "Oh, hey, we're going to go and we're going to meet, like, basically do client meetings, essentially, or customer meetings, I should say. Um, go on site to where they are and see what their work experience is like, and have the conversations with them instead of always expecting them to come to us." And I went to those a lot, and other developers really didn't they didn't voluntarily do those most of the time. At some point, we started to rotate it, but I was always like, "I'm ready." Okay, so taking initiative, is great growth opportunity for you. Seeking out ways to improve a tool or a product as well. So, even internally, right? If you're trying to come up with projects or things that you want to work on, or just some way, like I said, to break up the monotony, you can look at ways to improve the tool or improve the product. You can shadow others, whether they be in your company, especially, or depending on what kind of jobs you have, maybe, you're able to go and see what their work is like. So shadowing is definitely really, really awesome. And then just saying yes to opportunities. Like, some things will come up and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, we're looking for somebody to do this." If it even seems remotely interesting to you, think about saying yes to those things, because that is where your growth is gonna come from. Um, when I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm interested in helping to, like, spin off this IoT team," I don't even think I really felt like I knew what IoT was, even though I knew what our product did, but I would never have imagined, like, myself as an IoT engineer or anything like that. But it was just such an amazing choice to go and do that instead of staying with the established team, and getting to go through that process that I went through initially, getting to go through it all over again, just starting a new team and starting a new product. Like, it was really awesome for me. I had so much fun doing that. Number 15 is to take breaks and reward yourself. So there's simple ways that we can definitely do this. In our day-to-day workflow, like the Pomodoro technique is very popular. Pomodoro is like a strategy where you take work and break cycles. So you can say, like, work for 30 minutes, break for 5 minutes, and then I'll keep doing that until I've already done like 4 working sessions. Once I've done 4 working sessions, instead of taking a 5-minute break, I'll take a 20-minute break or something like that. So, you can experiment with different time windows if you want to try something like Pomodoro. There's lots of articles and resources about that. Um, but then there's also, like, just thinking about hobbies and recreational days. Like I said, if you really, really love coding to the point where all your side stuff is also coding and all your main stuff is coding, try to have hobbies and, recreational days, socialize, um, have breaks and reward yourself, right? Because the reward is that you're rewarding yourself with the break instead of trying to push yourself through constantly always being under that technical pressure of trying to figure things out. Um, so you could switch it up. You can be like, "Oh, you know what? I did good today. I was very disciplined in all the Pomodoro working sessions. I was productive. So when I get off, I'm gonna, eat ice cream or whatever." Like, you can definitely do it that way too. And then number 16 was challenges. So, for me, there was 2 things here. So, challenges could be like taking on new challenges, which is a little bit more, like we said, about the different growth opportunities. But when I thought about challenges, I thought about the different structured challenges. And that's just because I think I'm pretty much known for this now. Um, I do 100 days of code, or I'll try to do like advent of code, advent of JavaScript. Right now, I am on 365 days of code. Like, this is literally real time. Today is day 4 for me. So I want to do something coding related with my live stream every single day for 365 days. And it doesn't have to be you can come up with whatever your rules and your parameters are, or you can follow like something that's already established. So if you ever want to try 100 days of code, or even something like a 30 days of code, but 100 days of code is like a known challenge. It has its own rules, or you can kind of set up the rules that you want. They have like actual challenges, the rules, the website, the GitHub repo that you can use to track your challenge, all of that. But those different challenges can definitely help out. Some things I haven't gotten into before, but I know a lot of people love as well, is like hacker rank challenges, competitive coding, different type of coding competitions. Those can really motivate you. Number 17 was to celebrate your successes. Um, we were just saying it was a live stream I was watching, and we're just saying how like developers are really hard on ourselves, and a lot of times we just see what we need to do next, and we don't see what we have done and how far we have come. So it is really helpful to keep track of your achievements and take time to reflect on the things that you've done as well. One thing I really love is sometimes at the end of the year I'll do these different worksheets that are they're planning, they're worksheets that help you plan for the next year. Um but the funny thing is that, one of the worksheets when it first starts out in planning for the new year, you don't first start out with your goals for the new year. You start out saying, "Hey, what 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 did I do last year? Like what went well?" Right? Because a lot of times if we stop and take that moment to say, "What has gone well? What have I been able to do?" You remember all these things that just doesn't come to the top of your mind on a day-to-day basis. And that can really, really revitalize and motivate you as well. For me, one thing that I love to do is revisit my GitHub account history. It's very sentimental and overly, overly emotional to me just because, when I started learning how to program, that is also when I started my GitHub account. So I can literally see the entire, history of me being a software engineer over the course of, I think my account is from 2000 and I think 2015 is when my account was started. No, it would have been 2014. So yeah, my account's like 10 years old. So, um, yeah, just that's something I really love to do. I love to sit there, go back and look at the different history, look at all the stuff, just remember the different projects I was doing over the years and where I was at in those phases. I can see my entire experience when I was a code in the coding boot camp and before that. And then I can't necessarily see all the code I worked on for like private repos when I worked at different companies, but I can remember different phases of my journey just by looking back at that, and that helps me out a lot, and it also helps me not get too down on myself in, when I feel like I'm not making the progress that I wanna make. So we're coming up on our last 2, number wait, let me see. Oh, last 3. So number 18 is gonna be effective time management. Look, I'm just gonna be real simple with y'all. You have to organize your thoughts. Especially being a technical person, you already have enough to think about. You don't want to also be trying to remember if you took out the food that you was going to make for dinner, and if you turned the stove off, and if like you actually left your lights on in the parking garage. Like you don't got time to be trying to remember everything, and your brain can get super overloaded with that. So do yourself a favor, even if it's just having a little notebook write that you can write down. When you can write down the thoughts that you have, tasks and things that you have to remember, you give your brain more capacity, so that way you have more, you have more bandwidth, I should say. So organizing your thoughts, writing things down, use a calendar or a planner. It doesn't have to be super complicated. You can, if you like physical planner, get a physical planner. If you like a super involved planner, get that. If you just like a little daily agenda, get that. If you just want to use the calendar on your phone, that's fine as well. But getting all of that stuff out of your head and also organizing your time, just putting the basic time towards like, "Hey, I put everything that I'm supposed to do, all my meetings that I have to remember this month are on the calendar," is going to go a long way in freeing up your mind and helping with avoiding burnout, which again demotivates us. Overestimate the time you need on things. Give yourself white space in between your time commitments as best as you can, and be realistic with yourself. That's one of the biggest things I struggle with folks that I either mentor or folks that like personal friends I have, is being realistic about time management and what it means. Like You cannot literally schedule every single second of your day because when something when inevitably something unexpected happens, now your whole schedule is just gone. Or you can't schedule every second of the day and not schedule in time to sleep at night. And that used to be me. I wouldn't I would I did not sleep like hardly ever when I was younger. But now I don't play that. I gotta go to bed. So last two. Number 19 is to be a good example. So we talked about mentoring, but especially depending on how far along you are in your career, you should probably be considering mentoring other folks, helping other folks out. It doesn't have to be anything super formal and like a lot of pressure, but be the same person that you needed when you were at that phase in your career. Take on leadership roles. I'm good for that. Like, when I was on campus in school, I was in a lot of different student organizations. I was president of different organizations at different times, president or vice president of different organizations. Um, and then eventually I got into regional leadership positions, and then I got into like national positions, board of directors, things like that. Stop. My alarms keep going off because I am going to be hosting a certification exam shortly. So we'll be wrapping up here. But yeah, being a good example is super, super motivating for me. When I started out as a TA for Girl Development, it was nothing like just helping people have their aha moment. Like, when someone is first getting started learning how to build a website and they don't have any technical experience, and it's very overwhelming, and it could be a lot to take in the beginning, and just being able to literally sit side by side with someone and get them to get their first like button to display on the page or something like that, and just that like celebration moment that they have, that excitement that they have, it really motivates me as well. So I have never gotten out of teaching throughout my entire career. And in the phases where I found that I wasn't teaching as much as I wanted to, or I didn't have the time in my schedule to teach regularly, I really, really felt like I felt a little bit more down. I felt a little bit more demotivated. It was the community side of it, like helping other people, and there was also the learning side of it, because to me, I learn best when I have to reteach it to somebody else. So I was a lot more motivated when teaching others was regularly a part of my day to day, and that can take the form of teaching at different workshops, working with different nonprofits, or different volunteer opportunities, but it could also take the form of, like we talked about, blogs and live content, things like that. So, last but not least, we are down to our final one. The final tip, which was number 20, was team collaboration. Um, Working with others, being able to work with others, joining a new team, or being able to shadow other teams and roles. I really feel like these might be underrated, but these are so crucial. Um, a lot of times there's this misconception that being a programmer, being a software engineer means having headphones on and being face down to the keyboard all day, not talking with anybody. And it's like nothing could be more far from the truth. Um, yes, that's possible to have that type of experience, but most of the time you're not going to be the only programmer. And even if you are the only programmer, like say you're in the startup and you're the only programmer at that point, it's really isolating staying like that. So even if you don't have like um a direct technical team that you work with, there's other ways that you can find your way to a team, whether it's like we talked about before, getting into different communities. Um for me right now, I'm more so into the entrepreneurial space. Um I am the only technical team member on the startup that I work with. And I teach, but I mean, I teach online a lot nowadays. So like nobody even turns on their camera when you're teaching in Zoom. And so it can be very isolating because I work from home and I'm never really around other people like I used to be when I worked full time on the software team. and I had 30 other software engineers in the office. So, I really love, like, I personally love now, like, Twitch and just being in the co-working streams on Twitch. Sometimes I have co-working streams, sometimes other people are having their co-working streams, and just, being able to chat with other people throughout the day, and not just kind of be in isolation and being this like one man world or whatever. I don't enjoy that process, and I think it's very funny. I'm also an introvert, which a lot of people don't believe. And me being an introvert, I love my alone time. Like, I do really truly love my alone time. But at the same time, um, that only goes so far. And I think with what we experienced at throughout the entire world, in the past few years, I know a lot more people can really see and attest to the fact that being alone all the time and being in, like, isolation, that can really, really, truly demotivate you. And so I highly encourage you to, spend more time collaborating with others, looking for opportunities to team up with folks if you don't naturally, have teams that you are a part of. Um, for me, one way that I did this is when I was in my last, like, full-time software job, I joined different, like, we had, like, different little working groups, I guess you could say, that were not specifically, our day-to-day jobs. So one of the teams I was on was the recruitment team. So that was an opportunity where I got to spend time with people that were also other engineers and other technical leaders, but they were not on my team. And I got to establish those relationships, and I also got to, in that process, help others come and interview into the company and become part of the company as well. And I got to have a say in what that experience looked like for them, and, making sure that that experience was an accessible one, and all the things that I'm passionate about as well. Um, so, we also got to pair programmed in that team environment. So, sometimes I always got to pair with different team members because we had a rotation. We were really, really good with managing our rotation. I actually used to manage our rotations, on my teams to make sure that we always got to work with, different folks and got to work on different things. But we also had opportunities sometimes to go and pair with people on other teams as well. So, these are just a lot of different ways that you can approach the problem of having that motivation. So, I would say that if you are looking for even one tip, there was so many here that hopefully something fits the category that you're in. It's been a little bit of a long one, but again, I'm excited. Happy New Year. It has been a journey through 2023, and 2024 has so many things coming, and so many things that I can just kind of see are on the horizon, and so many things I know that I haven't even anticipated are definitely going to be unfolding. So I'm very excited about this year. If you want to follow the podcast or give me any feedback on different topics that you would like me to cover, then please do subscribe to YouTube, youtube.com/@ metadevgirl. You can also, if you're watching on Twitch, follow me on Twitch. I have a website, which is metadevgirl.com. And so on there, you can find past podcast episodes, you can find blogs and technical articles that I've written, you can find different workshops and different courses that I'm teaching. And you can also now find coaching, mentoring, and tutoring options as well. So I've gotten a lot of questions about that. And I finally got that all set up. So if you're interested and you want to do some one on one technical coaching, or you need some help tutoring or anything like that, then feel free to go and check that out, because you can literally go on there. You can get whichever type of coaching option you want. You can pay, and then you can already like schedule. And right now, all of my calendar time for booking any type of appointments like that is filled up. It's open all the way through March. So so today is January. What's today? Today is the 4th. Oh yeah, that's easy because my 365 days ago. Okay. So anyways, today is January 4th. So right now my calendar is open between January all the way through the end of March. All of my dates are there if you want to book anytime. So Yeah, I look forward to our next episode. I look forward to the next podcast for next week, which is going to be hacking with the homies, and we'll be beefing up our content this year. So feel free to reach out, like, comment, subscribe, do all the great things. Share this with someone that you think would enjoy it, and I will see you all in the next episode.